The descent into Velura was so smooth, it felt like floating through a dream. Ethan sat stiffly in his shuttle seat, his fingers clamped around the armrest as the world below unfurled like a living painting. The planet's surface shimmered with rivers of bioluminescence, pulsing softly beneath a canopy of crystalline trees. Towering spires rose from the earth like glass sculptures, their translucent walls glowing with faint hues that responded to the changing light. The air itself seemed to glow, a luminous haze dancing over the ground like living breath. When the shuttle touched down at the port, a gentle chime played not an alarm or system notification, but a soft melodic tone that soothed more than alerted. The doors parted with a sigh, releasing Ethan into a world that smelled like petrichor and blooming citrus, a strange but oddly comforting blend. He stepped out cautiously, his boots crunching against a carpet of what looked like softly glowing moss. Velurans tall, graceful beings with skin in gradients of pale blue to opalescent silver moved silently through the terminal. Their long limbs flowed with dancer-like elegance, and many walked barefoot, the soles of their feet glowing faintly. Where they touched the ground, they didn't speak much, but occasionally paused to rest their fingers on another's arm or shoulder. Brief touches charged with meaning Ethan didn't understand. He felt like a stranger in a museum, walking too loudly, breathing too fast. Everything here felt exposed, not physically, but emotionally, like the air was tuned to some frequency of the soul, and he was the only one out of sync. A soft chime indicated his escort's arrival. She was Veluran as well, serene-eyed and slender, her presence calming like a lullaby. "Ethan Rell," she said in perfect standard, though her voice carried a musical lilt. "Your residence is prepared. You will be living with Sailari." Ethan raised an eyebrow. "That's my roommate?" "Yes. She has agreed to share space for the duration of your stay. You are fortunate. Few of her kind participate directly." As they walked through winding streets of glowing cobblestone and living plants that bowed gently as they passed, Ethan grew more aware of how observed he felt. Not stared at, but felt. Every time a Veluran passed, he sensed their attention, not just visual, but something deeper, like a pressure on his chest that faded once they moved away. When they arrived, the dwelling took his breath. The home looked like it had been grown rather than built, its structure winding up from the earth like a tree hollowed into living quarters. The interior was a cascade of warm light and soft, organically curved furniture. It smelled faintly of honeyed wood and something cooler, like fresh mint. She was already there. Sailari stood near a crystalline window, her silver hair falling in silken sheets over her back. Her skin shimmered faintly in the light like polished marble, alive with energy. She turned as he entered, and their eyes met. Ethan faltered. She was beautiful, yes, but there was more, something regal in her stillness, a calm so completed, felt foreign. She tilted her head slightly, studying him the way one might study a new instrument before playing it. "Ethan Rell," she said softly. "Welcome to Velura." Her voice was like the hum of the forest, outside, soft, resonant, impossibly calm. Ethan nodded, trying to keep his gaze steady. "Thanks. Thanks for agreeing to share the space." Her lips curved into what might have been a smile, but it was subtle, fleeting. "You're guarded," she said, not unkindly. "It radiates from you, but that's all right. I've never lived with a human before." He stiffened, unsure whether that was a warning or a curiosity. She stepped back, leaving a respectful distance between them, but he could feel her attention linger. Not in the way someone stares, but in the way someone listens without sound. "I'll try not to be in the way," he offered clumsily, retreating toward what he assumed was his room. Sailari said nothing, only observed as he vanished behind the curved wall. But as Ethan leaned his back against the door, exhaling slowly, He realized his heart was racing. He had come here for diplomacy, for science, for progress. But already he felt like he was naked in a world without walls. Asterisk, the following morning. Light poured in through the curved window panels of Ethan's room, not harsh sunlight, but a soft golden blue haze that made the air seem dreamlike. He hadn't slept much. The silence of the Valuran night was unsettling, broken only by faint, bioluminescent chimes from the trees outside. No hum of electronics, no city noise, just stillness. And her. He stepped out into the common space, trying not to let his eyes linger too long on the graceful figure sitting cross-legged beside a floating orb of flickering light. Sailari was meditating, or at least he assumed so. Her hands hovered just above her knees, fingers relaxed but steady, eyes closed. The orb pulsed slowly, in rhythm with her breath. Ethan cleared his throat softly. Morning. Her eyes opened instantly, focused and alert. Good morning, Ethan. She rose in a single fluid motion, no effort, like a reed moving with thee. Wind. There is food if you require sustenance. She gestured toward the low, curved counter where a small bowl of glowing fruit and soft bread-like rolls awaited him. He moved toward it with a muttered thanks, trying not to feel self-conscious, as he poured himself a drink from a crystalline pitcher. Everything here looked like it belonged in an art gallery, fluid, delicate, humming faintly with ambient energy. He felt clumsy beside it all. They ate mostly in silence. Ethan was grateful for that. Words felt too heavy in this place. Still, Sailari's eyes occasionally flicked toward him, curious, but unreadable. I reviewed the schedule for the cultural exchange activities, she said eventually. You'll be working in the Arboreal Conservatory during the day. In the evenings, we're encouraged to share. Share? She tilted her head. Experience, emotion, memory. Many Valurans believe connection is essential to understanding. Ethan shifted in his seat. Yeah, I'm not used to that. I can feel that. He froze. You can what? Her expression didn't change, but her tone softened. We perceive emotional waves. It is not mind reading. It is more like sensing heat from a fire. You burn bright. I simply feel the warmth. He rubbed the back of his neck, suddenly aware of how tight his shoulders were. Guess I'm not exactly a candle in the dark. No, she said quietly. You are a storm on the horizon. The words hit him harder than he expected. He didn't know whether to laugh or apologize. Right, he said, pushing his bowl away. Well, I'll try not to rain on your meditations. She blinked, confused. Was that humor? Ethan chuckled despite himself. I guess, yeah. I see. She looked down, then back up with something that might have been amusement flickering across her face. I am still learning human nuance. He wasn't sure if she was teasing him or being literal. With her, every expression felt carefully, weighed like she was navigating a language more fragile than her own. The rest of the day passed in a blur. The conservatory was stunning living glass domes, trees with ribbon-like leaves, fountains of glowing mist, but Ethan struggled to focus. Every interaction felt performative, every conversation too exposed. He caught himself glancing over his shoulder, expecting to see Sailari's silent gaze trailing him, reading emotions he hadn't even acknowledged yet. When he returned that evening, bone-tired and half-drenched from an unexpected cloudburst, the house was dim. Sailari stood by the window, hands clasped in front of her, eyes turned toward the trees. Long day, Ethan said, wiping his face with a towel. Your trees tried to drown me. Velura cleanses those who carry tension, she replied simply. He raised an eyebrow. By throwing buckets of rain on them? By offering release? He scoffed, half smiling. Your lucky humans don't do that. We just yell at each other or bottle it up until something breaks. I know. She turned to him fully, the dim ambient light catching the shimmer in her skin. That is what fascinates me. Ethan blinked. What does? The way you hide. There was no accusation in her voice, just observation, clinical and soft. Still, it pierced him. I'm not hiding, he said too quickly. I just don't wear everything on the outside like you do. She stepped closer. Not enough to invade, but enough to make the space between them feel charged. Perhaps, she said gently. But here, silence has volume. And you are very loud. He didn't respond. He didn't know how. That night, as he sat in his room, towel slung around his shoulders, Ethan stared at his reflection in the window's curve. Beyond the glass, Allura shimmered with emotion and light, a world without walls. A place where even the act of feeling was visible. He wondered how long he could survive here before something inside him had to give. Asterisk, the night air in Allura was heavier than Ethan expected. Not in temperature, no. It was cool and fragrant. Like the breath of the sleeping forest, but in feeling. There was something in the silence, a pressure beneath the calm, as though the planet itself was listening. He lay awake, one arm behind his head, staring up at the softly glowing lines that pulsed across the ceiling like veins of light. Sleep came in fragments. His mind wouldn't let go of her words. You are very loud. What had she meant? And why did it bother him so much? The next morning came quickly. Light crept across the floor like paint poured in slow motion, shifting from pale gold to ocean blue. Ethan groaned and sat up, rubbing his eyes. The house was quiet. No movement. No hums, no soft footfalls. He took his time, showered, let the cool water wash over his skin, trying to calm the churning restlessness inside him. The tiled walls changed color in response to temperature and touch. Everything on Allura felt alive, somehow aware. When? He stepped out. He wrapped a towel around his waist and moved to his room, trailing steam behind him. The door hissed open as he stepped inside. Only, it wasn't just his room anymore. He froze. Sailari stood in the doorway, her silhouette framed by the ambient light of the hallway. She wasn't moving. Her eyes, those deep, calm eyes, had gone wide. Her gaze locked on him. Ethan's breath caught in his throat. His skin was still damp, still glowing faintly in the cool air. The towel was clutched low around his waist, barely hanging on. A beat passed, then another. Still, she didn't speak, didn't look away. He moved on instinct, snatching a loose shirt from the chair and covering himself clumsily. Selah, I didn't realize you were still nothing. She just stood there, unmoving. But something was happening in the space between them. He could feel it like static building, but not on his skin. In the air dot, and then he noticed it. The faint glow that always surrounded her had intensified. Her skin pulsed with soft, light-knot embarrassment. No, this wasn't some shy reaction. It was something else. Something. Deeper dot, she finally spoke. Her voice almost a whisper. You didn't lock the door. I didn't think anyone would. He trailed off. There was no point in finishing that sentence. Sailari stepped back, not in panic, but as if giving him room. Her expression had changed. She looked shaken, not repulsed, not shocked, shaken. Her glow dimmed slightly. I thought... She paused, pressing her fingers lightly to her forehead. I thought you were offering. Ethan's stomach turned. What? Offering what? She didn't answer, but her posture changed, arms crossing, head low, defensive. No, wait, he said, stepping forward, towel gripped tightly. You think I did this on purpose? That I was proposing something? Her silence confirmed it. A long breath escaped her. Lips. Among my people, We do not show ourselves that way unless there is intent. Vulnerability is a sacred act, a declaration. You caught me off guard. Ethan turned away, humiliated. It wasn't intentional. It was just a mistake. Humans don't think about nudity like that. We're not sacred about it. We're just embarrassed. She looked at him for a long time. You are still glowing. He glanced down. His skin shimmered faintly from the recent shower. The Veluran light picked up everything, every drop of water, every line of skin, every tremble. It wasn't just exposure. It was amplification. Ethan tightened his towel and marched toward the wardrobe. I'm getting dressed. He could hear her shift behind him. I will give you space. The door hissed shut behind her when he was finally alone. Ethan let out a long breath and leaned against the wall. His heart was racing, his face on fire. What the hell just happened? But as his mind replayed the moment, he couldn't shake the look in her eyes. That reaction, it wasn't horror. It was confusion, intensity, emotion he couldn't name. The rest of the day passed awkwardly. They barely spoke. Sailari kept to herself, spending long hours in the garden alcove, meditating. Her glow had changed. It was fainter, quieter, withdrawn, and Ethan hated it. Hated that he had caused that shift, even if by accident. He caught himself looking at her more often now, trying to decipher her expression. But she had built her own wall, and she wasn't letting him in. That night, as they crossed paths in the hallway, their eyes met briefly. She looked down, said nothing. And in that moment, Ethan realized he was no longer the only one hiding something. Asterisk, the sun dipped low beyond Velura's crystalline horizon, bathing the city in a soft violet glow. Bioluminescent trees blinked slowly to life, their limbs lighting up in a rhythmic pulse that mirrored the emotion of the living world. Ethan watched them from the small terrace outside their shared home, his elbows resting on the smooth railing, his mind adrift. It had been 2 days since the incident, as he now privately called it, and everything had shifted. The silence between him and Sailari wasn't hostile, but it was loaded. Polite exchanges had replaced their once curious conversations. The easy tension of strangers had morphed into something more difficult, the weight of something unspoken. He had tried once, that morning, to bridge the distance. A simple greeting, a suggestion to prepare tea together like they had before. Sailari had smiled, but it didn't reach her eyes. Ethan had retreated. Now, the tension sat on his shoulders like a lead blanket. He felt trapped between cultures, between intention and accident, between what he had done and what she had seen. He didn't know how to fix something he didn't fully understand. The terrace door slid open behind him. He didn't have to turn to know it was her. I know a place, Sailari said quietly. Ethan looked over his shoulder. She stood barefoot on the smooth stone floor, her silver hair loose for once, drifting slightly in the warm breeze. Her glowing eyes met his with calm, unreadable intensity. A place? He asked. She nodded. Where we share truth. Not words. Feelings. Where Velurans go when we are tangled inside. He hesitated. And you want to take me? She stepped forward, the terrace lighting reacting to her presence in a soft halo. You are already there, Ethan. Tangled. He gave a half smile, dry and tired. Yeah, that obvious, huh? She didn't smile back. Pain ripples, even when quiet. Ethan nodded, defeated. Then lead the way. They walked in silence, weaving through winding stone paths and archways lit by floating lights. The Lurans moved past them occasionally, some exchanging respectful nods with Sailari. Ethan noticed something strange each time they passed someone. Sailari's glow dimmed slightly, as if she were masking herself. Hiding, they reached a grove at the edge of the city. Towering trees with translucent leaves rustled in a wind. It seemed more emotional than physical. At the center of the grove stood a massive tree twisting upward like a frozen flame. It pulsed faintly, light traveling along its bark in steady, calming waves. "The lantern tree," Sailari said softly. "We share truth here, even when we do not understand it." Ethan stared up at it, heart thudding. "And what do I do?" "Feel, and let yourself be felt." She sat cross-legged at the base of the tree, palms open. Ethan hesitated, then followed. The ground beneath him was warm. Not from the sun, but from something deeper, something alive. They sat in silence. The tree pulsed. And then, something shifted. Ethan's chest tightened. Not with pain, with release, as though a knot inside him was loosening. The guilt, the embarrassment, the confusion, it all rose to the surface. Not in words, in waves. He looked at Sailari. She was glowing again, gently, softly, like a heartbeat. Her eyes were closed, her breathing slow. She was connected to him, to the moment, to the feeling. "I didn't mean for that to happen," he whispered. His voice felt out of place here, but he needed to say it. Back in the room, it wasn't meant to be anything. Just stupid human awkwardness. Her eyes opened. "But it was something," she said. "I didn't know what it meant to you," he said. "I didn't even think. Humans don't assign meaning to nudity. Not like you do. It's not sacred for us. It's just embarrassing." "I saw you," she said gently. "All of you. And I thought you were choosing me." He looked away, ashamed. "I'm sorry." "Don't be," she said, her voice barely audible. "You showed me something I wasn't ready to see, but it wasn't wrong." Their eyes met again. Ethan felt his chest tighten. "So what now?" Sailari tilted her head, studying him with that same quiet intensity. "Now, we share truth. Real truth." She reached out slowly. Her fingers brushed his hand, warm, light as air. The moment their skin touched, Ethan felt a sudden, dizzying pulse shoot through his body. Not pain, emotion, her sorrow, her confusion, her longing. It was all there, bleeding through the touch. He gasped. "And now," she whispered, "you feel?" The glow between them intensified. Not blinding, but deep, like moonlight on water. Sailari's hand tightened slightly around his. "I have been hiding too," she said. "I was afraid I had read you wrong, that I had made a fool of myself." "You didn't," he said, voice hoarse. I didn't know how to let myself be seen. You do now." The tree pulsed once more. Stronger this time. The silence wasn't heavy anymore. It was full. Ethan realized something terrifying and beautiful. She saw him, and he wanted her to. The moonlight over Velura was softer than anything Ethan had known on Earth. It poured down, in twin silvery arcs, casting shadows that shimmered and changed as if they breathed. The bioluminescent trees surrounding their home pulsed faintly, as if echoing the quiet new rhythm that now existed between him and Sailari. It had only been a few days since they'd sat beneath the lantern tree, but something fundamental had shifted, not in words, not in action, but in the very atmosphere between them. Ethan noticed everything now. The way Sailari's glow fluctuated, ever so slightly when she passed close to him. The subtle way her fingers brushed the air, as if she were constantly reading some emotional current. The faint tension in her voice when they shared a moment of silence too long, like she was waiting for something unspoken. He felt it too, a magnetic pull. Not just attraction, but understanding. Shared vulnerability. A growing hunger to close the gap that still remained between them. It was a quiet evening, humid and fragrant, the sky a blanket of glowing stars. Ethan sat in the common room, thumbing through the pages of a Veluran language guide. He wasn't reading, just turning the pages over and over in his hand, like a nervous tick-dot from the kitchen alcove. Salarai emerged with 2 cups of steaming tea. She moved like a poem fluid natural, as if space bent around her movements. She placed one of the cups beside him, her fingers grazing his lightly in the exchange. "Thank you," he murmured, surprised at how his voice trembled. She didn't respond. Just sat across from him on the cushion, her long legs folded beneath. The soft robe she wore glowed faintly where they brushed the floor. Her silver hair was tied in a loose braid that shimmered in the dim light. She looked at him in silence for a long moment, not speaking, just feeling. Ethan set the book aside. "You've been quiet again," he said carefully. "I'm listening," she replied, voice soft as dusk. "You've been saying many things." Without words. He swallowed hard. I don't know what to do with this. Whatever's happening between us." Sailari tilted her head slightly. "You are not afraid of me. But you are afraid of what you're feeling." "Why?" He didn't answer at first. He watched the steam curl from the cup, trying to name the ache in his chest. "Because if I admit it's real," he said at last, "then it's not just a moment anymore. It's a choice, and choices have consequences." She studied him, her eyes unreadable. "And what is the consequence of choosing me?" "I won't be able to walk away." Salari's glow softened, and she exhaled slowly. "Good," she whispered. The word stunned him. She rose from her seat, without breaking eye contact, and crossed the short space between them. Each step was measured, not hesitant, but deliberate, like walking across thin ice that would not break beneath her weight. When she stopped, she knelt beside him. Her face was close now, so close he could feel the warmth of her breath, the subtle hum of her energy in the air. "I have kept myself distant," she said. "Not because I do not feel, but because I feel too much. Velurans do not give emotion lightly, and I felt yours, Ethan. I felt it from the beginning, even when you did not." His throat tightened. "I think I've always felt it," he admitted. "I just didn't recognize it for what it was." Her hand reached for his, and when their fingers touched, the room seemed to shimmer. "I want you to see me," she whispered. "Not the diplomat, not the alien, just me." Ethan turned his palm, entwining his fingers with hers. His heart beat like thunder. "I see you," he said, barely a breath. "I see all of you." The glow around her pulsed once, then again. But this time it didn't fade. It intensified. Her eyes widened slightly, her mouth parting in surprise. And then, without warning, her body trembled. "Sailari?" Ethan stood up, panic beginning to grip him. She swayed, her glow pulsing wildly, now irregular, unstable. Her breathing grew shallow, her skin dimming at the edges. She gasped. "It's too much. I didn't think." "Not yet." She collapsed into his arms. "Selah." Ethan caught her, lowering her gently to the floor. Her body was hot, almost feverish, yet flickering with light like a failing star. He pressed a hand to her cheek. "What's happening? Talk to me." Her voice was faint. "The bond. It began the moment I saw you, when you revealed yourself. It was a spark, but I kept it inside, suppressed it. But now..." Ethan shook his head. "Now what?" "If it's not returned, if the bond is not chosen, it consumes." He stared at her, realization crashing over him like a wave. "This whole time, you've been connected to me?" She nodded weakly. "Veluran soul bond. It happens only once." "But I thought you didn't." "I thought I was alone in it." "No," he whispered. "You're not." His heart pounded. Every part of him screamed that this wasn't just about cultural misunderstanding. This was a moment of life or death, of commitment or collapse. "Ethan, looked down at her eyes glowing faintly even in her weakness, and made a choice. I choose it. I choose you. Her breath hitched, and then something exploded in the air between them. Not sound, not light, feeling, raw and immense. It surged between their bodies like a current dot, she gasped, and her glow flared blinding and beautiful, and for a moment, the entire house seemed to pulse with it. Then silence, then stillness, and Sailari opened her eyes, no longer dim. Ethan sat there holding her, shaken, breathless, and irrevocably changed, and he knew this was no longer something happening between them. It was them. Asterisk the morning after the bond was forged. The light over Velura looked different. It was richer, somehow gold pouring through sapphire skies, glinting off the translucent leaves that trembled with life. Ethan stood at the threshold of their home, letting the sunlight wash over him like a baptism. His body still ached with the echo of what had happened the night before, not pain, but resonance. Like his very soul had been rewritten. Inside, Sailari slept. She lay curled on one of the lounge cushions, her breathing soft, her skin glowing with a steady, rhythmic light that now pulsed in perfect harmony with the ambient energy of the house. The bond had stabilized her, grounded her. It had also changed her. It had changed both of them. Ethan turned away from the light, heart pounding, and walked back inside. Every surface of the house seemed more vivid, as if seeing through new eyes. As if everything light, warmth, even silence, was infused with her. And not in a metaphorical way. He could feel her now, not just see her or hear her. He could sense her emotions beneath the quiet, and right now they were stirring. She woke with a gentle stretch, her eyes fluttering open to meet his. For a moment, neither of them moved. Then Sailari smiled, and Ethan felt the warmth of it move through him like sunlight through water. You stayed, she said, voice still husky from sleep. Ethan knelt beside her. You scared the hell out of me. I scared myself, she admitted, sitting up slowly. I didn't know if you would accept it. I didn't know I could accept it, he said honestly. Not until I almost lost you. Her fingers reached out, brushing his jaw, and that simple touch sent a rush of feeling through him. Safety, connection, wonder. It made his breath catch. What happens now? He asked quietly. She looked at him for a long time before answering. Now you understand what I couldn't tell you before. That what we share is not just emotion. It is unity. A Veluran soul bond is a living thing. Once formed, it cannot be severed, not without pain that runs deeper than flesh. Ethan stared at her. So, it's permanent? She nodded. More than that. It's forever. I'm yours now, Ethan Rell, and you are mine. The words hit him like thunder and music all at once. Part of him reeled at the finality of it, the vastness of the promise. But another part, the part that had slowly unraveled since arriving here, felt only peace. There was something unspoken, something that had nagged at the back of his mind for days. He took her hand gently, holding it between his palms. Selah, there's something I don't understand. She tilted her head slightly, curious. You were always so formal, so distant at first. Even when I made you uncomfortable, you never really pulled away. And I always wondered, why you? Why were you in the program? You didn't seem like someone who volunteered easily. For a moment, Sailari hesitated. Then she stood, her fingers sliding from his, and walked to the arched window where the twin suns were beginning to rise. I didn't volunteer, she said softly. I was chosen? Chosen? Ethan stood, frowning. By who? She turned, the light catching her silver braid, her expression unreadable. By the High Council. I'm not just a citizen of Velura, Ethan. I'm a blood heir, a direct descendant of the ruling line, the soul bonding right. is sacred in our society, reserved only for the most trusted, most profound connections. The council sent me to determine whether humans your species could feel in the way we do. If your kind could be trusted with our hearts. Ethan's breath left his lungs. In a rush. You mean this was a test? She nodded, solemn. Yes, but it became something else. Something I didn't expect. The moment I saw you, when you stood before me, unguarded, vulnerable, I felt the spark. Not as a diplomat, as a woman. And I broke protocol. I let the bond begin without permission, without control. He stepped closer, heart pounding. You risked your life, your standing, everything. I did, she said simply, because you weren't just the test. You were the answer. Ethan stood in stunned silence. The final piece slid into place. That day in the room, her reaction, the way she watched him afterward, the withdrawal, the confusion, the fear, not because she didn't feel anything, but because she felt everything and didn't know if he would ever feel it back. He crossed the room and took her hand again. She didn't resist. This time, her glow enveloped both of them, soft and steady. You didn't just choose me, he said, voice low. You believed in me. She met his gaze, and the answer was already there in her eyes. I did, she whispered. He leaned in, forehead touching hers. And now I believe in us. Outside, the skies brightened. The air shimmered. Velura pulsed softly with emotion, the planet alive with feeling. Inside their home, a human and a Veluran stood entwined not as strangers, not as species, not even as lovers, but as something new bonded whole, forever, the end.